Tonight, we explore experiences that feel strangely mysterious, yet originate within the mind itself. Moments where reality appears familiar, unfamiliar, distorted, or subtly surreal. Not because the external world has changed, but because perception has shifted. The first phenomenon is one almost everyone has encountered: déjà vu, a quiet sensation that the present moment has already occurred, not as a vague familiarity, but as a precise emotional certainty. A conversation feels repeated, a place feels remembered, a moment feels rehearsed, despite occurring for the first time. Psychologists suggest this experience may arise from brief mismatches in memory processing. Yet understanding the mechanism does not fully dissolve the feeling, because déjà vu carries a peculiar emotional weight, a whisper of familiarity that lingers, without explanation. And occasionally, it creates the curious sense that life itself is following a script, one you forgot you had read. Another phenomenon moves in the opposite direction: jamais vu, where familiar experiences suddenly feel unfamiliar. A word you've used your entire life appears strange when repeated. A face feels momentarily unrecognizable. A routine action feels foreign. It is not memory loss, but a temporary disruption in recognition. And it highlights something quietly profound. Familiarity is not a fixed property of reality. It is a state constructed by the mind, which means familiarity can fluctuate. Tonight, we explore moments in history where reality quietly resembled conspiracy. Stories that were once dismissed as improbable, exaggerated, or even fictional, only to later emerge with documented evidence. These stories are not presented as sensational revelations, but as reminders that history, like memory, can be complex and sometimes incomplete. The first story begins during the Cold War, a period defined by tension, secrecy, and an atmosphere where information was carefully controlled. During this time, a program known as MK-Ultra operated in the shadows. For years, rumors circulated about experiments involving psychological manipulation and altered states of consciousness. These rumors were often dismissed as conspiracy theories, stories told on the fringes, lacking credibility in mainstream discourse. Yet in the 1970s, investigations revealed documentation confirming the existence of MK-Ultra, a program involving experiment on human subjects conducted without informed consent. The details were unsettling, but perhaps more unsettling was the realization that rumors, once considered implausible, had contained fragments of truth. Another story involves a proposed operation known as Operation Northwoods. In the early 1960s, documents later declassified revealed discussions of staged incidents designed to justify military action. The proposal was never implemented, yet its existence demonstrated something profound: that ideas once dismissed as too extreme had been formally considered within strategic planning contexts. History does not suggest inevitability, but it does suggest possibility. A reminder that human decision-making, even within institutions, can be complex. There are also stories involving surveillance. For decades, concerns about widespread monitoring were often labeled, yet revelations in the early 21st century confirmed extensive surveillance programs operating at scales previously difficult to imagine. These disclosures did not validate every speculation, but they reshaped public understanding of technological capability and institutional reach. Another historical example involves the Tuskegee syphilis study, a study that began in 1932 under the premise of observing disease progression. Participants were not fully informed of the nature of the study, and treatment was withheld even after it became available. For years, the ethical implications remained obscured from public awareness, until investigative reporting brought the story into wider consciousness. The revelation was not only about medical ethics, but about the importance of transparency, accountability, and historical reflection. There are also quieter conspiracies, moments where corporate or institutional actions were concealed, not for dramatic geopolitical strategy, but for economic or reputational preservation. Documents revealed decades later, memoirs written after careers concluded, pieces of information that gradually reshaped understanding of past events. Yet it is important to approach these stories with balance. History is not a binary narrative of hidden truth versus public deception. It is a mosaic, a collection of perspectives, motivations, and incomplete information. And perhaps the most valuable lesson from these stories is not suspicion, but humility. Humility in recognizing the limits of certainty. Humility in understanding that knowledge evolves. And humility in accepting that history, like memory, is continuously reinterpreted. As you lie here tonight, reflecting on these stories, it may be tempting to search for definitive conclusions, to categorize events as either truth or conspiracy. But sleep invites a different approach, an approach grounded not in resolution, but in curiosity. Curiosity without anxiety, reflection without fixation. Because history is vast, and the mysteries within it do not demand immediate answers. They invite contemplation, a quiet awareness that human systems, like human minds, are imperfect, and that uncertainty is not inherently threatening. It is simply part of the human experience. So allow these stories to rest in the background, not as sources of unease, but as reminders of complexity, of nuance, of the layered nature of truth. And as your thoughts begin to soften, remember that peace does not require complete understanding of history. It requires presence. Presence in this moment. Presence in the quiet rhythm of your breath. Presence in the knowledge that whatever mysteries exist in the world, they need not disturb your rest. Because sleep is not concerned with unresolved history. Sleep arrives gently, regardless of unanswered questions. And in that gentle arrival, curiosity transforms into calm. Reflection transforms into stillness. And history fades quietly into the background. Another experience often described is derealization, a feeling that the world appears distant, dreamlike, or slightly artificial. Colors feel muted, sounds feel softened, moments feel observed rather than inhabited. Derealization does not imply disconnection from reality, but rather a shift in emotional engagement with it, often emerging during stress, fatigue, or intense introspection. It is the mind's way of creating distance when immediacy feels overwhelming. And while unsettling at first, understanding its psychological roots can transform fear into curiosity, because the experience reveals something fundamental. Perception is not passive. It is constructed. There are also phenomena involving memory itself. False memories. Moments remembered vividly, yet inaccurately. Details recalled with confidence, yet contradicted by evidence. This is not a failure of intelligence, but a reflection of how memory functions. Memory is not an archive. It is a reconstruction. A story rewritten with each recollection, which explains why siblings may remember the same childhood event differently. why conversations may be recalled with subtle variation, and why confidence does not always equal accuracy. Perhaps the most relatable phenomenon is the frequency illusion, sometimes called the Baader-Meinhof effect. You learn a new concept and suddenly encounter it everywhere. A word appears repeatedly, a song resurfaces frequently, an idea emerges in multiple conversations. The world seems to echo the concept, as if reality itself has adjusted focus. Yet the change is not external, it is attentional. The mind simply notices what it previously ignored. But emotionally, the experience can feel uncanny, as if patterns have emerged from randomness. And perhaps this is the quiet theme underlying all these phenomena. Reality is not merely experienced, it is interpreted, filtered through attention, memory, emotion, and expectation, which means the world we perceive is not a fixed photograph, but a dynamic painting, continuously updated by the mind. This realization can feel unsettling, but it can also be comforting, because if perception is constructed, it is also flexible. Moments that feel strange do not indicate broken reality. They indicate a mind navigating complexity, and occasionally experimenting with perspective. As you lie here tonight, reflecting on these experiences, you may recognize fragments of your own life, moments where reality felt subtly distorted, memories that felt unusually vivid, coincidences that felt improbable, or thoughts that created temporary distance from the present moment. But rather than interpreting these experiences as disruptions, you can view them as reminders. Reminders that perception is layered, that consciousness is intricate, and that the mind, while remarkably reliable, is also wonderfully creative. Which means reality need not feel perfectly stable to remain safe. Uncertainty does not equal danger. Strangeness does not equal threat, and mystery does not require resolution. So allow your thoughts to drift. Allow the mysteries of perception to remain unresolved, and allow yourself the gentle comfort of knowing that reality, however it is perceived, is safe in this moment, and that within this quiet awareness, sleep can arrive naturally.